welcome everyone to the November 27th, 2023 regular board meeting for the town of Aberdeen. There are agendas on the table when you came in if you'd like to pick one up, and if you would like to speak on any item tonight, if you would fill out a request to speak and give it to the clerk, we'll be glad to let you have the microphone. I welcome everybody after this Thanksgiving holiday. I hope everyone had a nice one. One day you'll lose some of the weight you gained from last week, so hopefully. But anyway, let's get started. We'll go to number one, call to order, and the first on the item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would also like to welcome anyone that is at home. This is being filmed, and they may be watching it on their computer. All right, I'm going to close out item number one and go to the setting of the agenda, item number two.
No changes, Mayor.
No changes, all right.
I make a motion, we set the agenda as written.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Close out, go to number three, which is consent agenda. All items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held except on request by a member of the Board of Commissioners. A, consider approval of minutes of regular board meeting of October 23, 2023, special call meeting of November 13, 2023, and work session of November 13, 2023.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Go to item number four, which is informal discussion and public comment. Is this? Anyone have any informal discussion or public comment? Anyone? Well, thank you. Thank you. I keep looking over there and seeing a picture on the wall. I think I might recognize somebody back there. Thank you for all of you.
I think you would.
Thank y'all for coming. Let's see. No one wants to speak. All right. Anna, we're glad to have you tonight. All right, I'll close out four and go to number five, manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. You have your written report on your desk, and just a quick few items. And I will say that the second part of the report, usually the financial report that Butch provides, he is out of town for a few days, dealing with some family matters, and but you do have the written report, the same one that Butch provides every month, and it's fairly detailed and up to date. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know, and/or I can track down Butch. So just want to let you know the financial report will be in written form only tonight. You've got the department reports in the written monthly, pretty standard month, Mayor. There are some good news in the financial report. Really some strong returns, especially in the sales tax side of things. As you know, we've had some really strong sales tax returns the last couple of years, and that does continue. We'll see how well, I guess this past Friday did, and November goes through in the next month or so when we get those returns back too. But we are a good bit ahead of schedule, and that's a good sign, because that does provide us with additional revenues each year, and that's been a strong return. And every year, Mayor, I promise, every year we try to hit the number based on the prior year's number. So like, let's say we beat the prior budget or the budget year in question, we end up getting 10 or 15% above that. So the next year, we go up 10 or 15%, and we're still, it seems like we're 8 or 10% below that. So really, it is growing almost exponentially here and there on the sales tax side. And a lot of that is online shopping too, which, again, going back several years, when we started capturing that, the numbers really start to increase. So that trend continues, and we're just happy to see it. It certainly makes our revenue much stronger year in, year out. Made some good progress, without going into any specifics on the detail. We've made some good progress on our efforts to hire. We're filling a lot of key positions now that have taken some time to be filled, so we're still working through that. And we've got a few more to wrap up here in these early weeks before the holidays hit in full force in mid and late December, so making some good progress there. And then just a few more just general items on the last page of the written report. Again, I gave you a summary of some of the event dates coming up in the next couple of weeks, because it does get pretty busy here. So please keep this if that'll help you on your calendaring for these events. In general, I'm still working on the closing with the Aberdeen Elementary School. I met with the with the purchaser twice the week before Thanksgiving, or the week of Thanksgiving, early in that week before Thanksgiving, I should say, and had some good meetings. And they were going to call us back this week to schedule a date with the board where you could have kind of a showing and maybe open to the public, but not part of a meeting like this or a work session, but just to give you an idea of what they're going to build out there and what their plans are. And we could do that. We can pick a time, not tonight, but pick a time, hopefully sometime in early December, where we could pick a late afternoon, early evening at the board's convenience. Come in, maybe it'll take an hour or so just to give you an idea. You can talk to the Mr. Lemos. Fabio is his first name, if you've heard us refer to him. Really nice, good person to work with, and he can kind of give you an idea of his architectural vision for that site, which I think you'll be impressed with. So we can work on some dates there, but I'm waiting to make sure he wanted to kind of finish off one or two things, which when I talked to him last week, he was very, very close to completing. So that should be actually a good discussion. He'll have some general plans, and you can ask him all the questions you want about what his vision includes and kind of and his timing on how things are going to roll out. I think it'd be a very good meeting. And also, Mayor, well, another thing we'll talk about in just a second, another similar meeting. But before we get there, still moving forward with the right-of-way acquisitions. I mentioned before that this is all DOT funds. It's a large amount, totaling some $764,000 if you include the water money we received already last month. So waiting to collect all those funds. I think we're going to get one check, I hope, by the end of the calendar year. Then the remaining check probably again sometime in January. We're still working through some of that paperwork. A lot of detail on those right-of-ways, but really no changes there. The Iron Horse project, waiting for the actual closing, unless you heard something, Mayor, but it's all set to do the final paperwork. It looks like this week and be signed, sealed, and delivered. So we're going to see how that goes, but really, we've done everything we're supposed to. It looks like now they're waiting on a few easements that were out of their control, one from NCDOT, which they obtained, another one from Piedmont Gas, which I'm not sure, but I thought they either got or received a word on right before Thanksgiving. So everything looks really good there. So finally, it looks like that land might be changing hands here after I think it's been 2 years now working on this project. So that's a good positive sign moving forward. Again, it's old news now in one respect, but just officially, since we were awarded it, but for the public's knowledge, and I know it was covered in the paper, but the town did receive the $250,000 grant funds from CVB, which is a project application for funds that will support tourism in our local jurisdiction. And as the board recalls, we submitted for improvements to either or both to the auditorium at the old Aberdeen Elementary School, which they did not fund, or to additional improvements to the sportsplex, which they did fund, and that was their choice. And those are really the only two projects that we could fit their criteria for that project fund. And again, the criteria was not just something that would just serve the community, but something that would create tourism, bring people from out of town into town, and hopefully add room nights to our local hotels and motels. So that was the aim of the project. So we did, I thought, very well with that award. And we have really over a year and a half to end of next year, I think is the date, to get started on spending those funds, and we'll be well in advance of that. So we're working on some preliminary numbers with Public Works on some of those estimates about what the additional paving will cost, and then also the tot lot, and then also the trail. So we're kind of putting all that together, and we'll see how that all comes together. And the last thing, Mayor, if you'll recall, about a month or so ago, we had really a discussion about the improvements or possible improvements to the intersection crossing with the railroad over on South Street in Sycamore. And John in Planning Department, he's been in pretty good contact on a regular basis with DOT and their rail division. So you've got three players. Of course, we've got the town, and it's in our jurisdiction. Then you've got the railroad, and we all know and love the railroad. And then you've got DOT and their rail division. So when the railroad crosses their streets, they get involved with to make it safe and to make it make sense. So the rail division with DOT, I mean, they're not in the railroad business, but they're handling the crossings, trying to make it safe. So they have a pot of money, which they get every year, which I think the total, John, help me, it might be $2.5 to $3.5 million, give or take. And it's gone up per year. You're right, but yeah, per year, it's several $1 million. So this project, though, is actually going to be, I think, a good bit even above that to do some of the railroad crossings. And it wasn't received too well, really anywhere, on the one-way of Sycamore, and that would be past South Street. So I'd be going past South Street in that back block, which is pretty quiet, back behind Coke, and then kind of back out. Right now, it's two-way all the way around. So we actually met as a group with NCDOT, their rail division, before Thanksgiving to talk it through and say, hey, what are you looking for? What's possible? So we met with two of their key people who control that funding, and they showed us a project, and actually made a little bit more sense when you saw it all on paper and how it would flow. But we're like, well, what's in this for us if we're able to accommodate these changes one way or the other? And we talked about cleaning up that street where there's a bunch of junk on the side of it as it goes past south and it goes toward the woods, basically. There's a bunch of old rail debris that's just sitting on the side of the road there. The street's not that wide. And, and then, of course, their dilemma is trying to make those three tracks that cross there in kind of a weird crossing, make it make sense for cars and safety. So we talked about sidewalks, we talked about cleaning up the debris, and being something the town would get out of that. So they understood, and they committed going back and talking to the railroad about what the railroad would do to clean that up if there was something that could be agreed to or accommodated in that intersection. So all that said and done, we don't have final answers, but we said that we would talk to the Board of Commissioners, about having, again, another work session with DOT, the rail division, not really like a walk-in kind of forum, more like a presentation, but a more casual and informal discussion about here's what we could do, here's what it would look like. But it's a big project. It would be one of their biggest projects, and we'd be using almost all of their funding for the year in question. And they said they've never done that before. But that's why they recognize what's possible and the amount of, changes that could be made that could work in our benefit. But again, some of those changes that we talked about were widening that road or making it wider for us, which would encroach on the DOT, or the railroad right of way to give us more room. But it would change the traffic patterns there on that road. And that's about the only way to make it make sense from their standpoint, because two-way won't work with the safety mechanisms they have there. So I just say that without any judgment or recommendation at this point, but all I'm saying is I think it'd probably be a good idea to sit down and go through what they're looking for and just meet with the rail division if the board's in favor of doing that. How soon, I'm not sure. Probably December is probably not possible, so we're probably talking about sometime the early part of January, I'd imagine, if the board's in favor of doing that. We can start working toward maybe that end.
That crossing's been there for over 100 years with nothing there. now they're wanting to spend a ton of money to put some crossing gates and lights and so forth on there.
Yeah, it's a lot, it's a lot.
And it's gonna really change that intersection.
Right. Yeah, like I said, I just think it's more to complete the picture, just so you have it in front of you. Because I know when you look at the map, it looks a lot better with their drawings, whatever. You have a much clearer understanding of what it is and what it is not. So, for better or worse. So I think it's, just, it paints a more accurate picture, I think.
Well, I would think the board would want to at least see what they're presenting.
I think that would be good.
I agree.
So would a late afternoon meeting?
Yeah, most any time, we can make it work with them.
Okay, all right, we'll move forward with that and try to set something up. And Mayor, I think that's all I have. That's all I have for my report. Again, just want to say we had a good employee luncheon the other day. I appreciate the board members who were able to make it. And employees are always grateful, and it was a good event, and just good to get everyone together for an hour or so, and share some food, and look forward to kick the holidays off right. So enjoy that. But man, that's all I have.
We have a number of Aberdeen graduates, Aberdeen people that went to Aberdeen school. You might want to mention what we did to the roof of the gym and auditorium. They would probably like to hear.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Mayor, and that did finish, it's about 2 weeks ago now, I think. But we did completely, we didn't rip it out, but they completely redid the commercial part of both the gym and auditorium roofs. It's that commercial kind of setup, so it's not like a slanted roof with shingles. It's that commercial grade of roof, which involves material, ceiling, the gravel kind of finish of some sort, and they completely did both those buildings. It was about $135,000, I think, give or take, on that, and it took them about a month to do all that work. But they have completed that, and Philip tells me that I trained a few times, and he hasn't seen any water on the inside of the building. So far, so good, and so it's a big first step in renovating that facility for the town. So it was good to get that completed and start that project moving forward.
Thank you. So you're going to do the Butch's report, or?
No, Mayor, I just say the written report's there, but that's all.
We can just read it?
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, I'll close out number 5. And, did someone say something? I'm sorry. And then we'll do, we could all read number 6, so I won't close out unless someone has something to ask. Request on number 6. All right, we can do that. I'll close out number 6, and then we'll go to number 7, public hearings and new business. Consider approval of proposed design plan for the new Aberdeen Library. And Mr. Cruz has submitted a request to speak, so. Are you up?
All right, sure, you come on up. Mayor, just by way of introduction, this is essentially the same item that we first introduced to 2 weeks ago. It's the same design plan, and Mr. Cruz has got a similar presentation. I think, yeah, shorter. I think he summarized, and certainly he may have a few more things to add to the presentation. And again, that is the same design that was presented 2 weeks ago at the work session.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, for placing us on the agenda tonight. I'm here with some of our board members and general members to ask for a yes vote on the proposed plan that we presented to you last week, that plan being for the interior design of the new, hopefully soon-to-be, Aberdeen's new public library. Receiving your approval tonight allows us to stay on our self-imposed schedule. Our next step would be to go back to the architect and complete discussions on the process and the timeline for completion of construction drawings. Early conversations with him indicate that could be as early as mid-February when the construction drawings are completed. During that wait time, we would obviously keep moving forward with our fundraising activities. And simultaneous to that, we'd work with Paul Sabison and his staff to ascertain what the process should be in determining how we move forward with a general contractor. The excitement in our group hasn't leveled off. It's just as high as it's been for the past few years. And the residents, we're getting, which I consider to be a good sign, we're getting more questions, emails on our website relative to when people want to know when the ribbon cutting is going to be. So we know we've generated some excitement, and there's some anticipation out there for all this to be completed. So that's all I've got to do with this, safe for this tonight. We look forward to your yes vote. And Paul, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, sir. As Mr. Cruz indicated, this is the request for the design approval. And then the next step, we talked a little bit beforehand, would be to hire, the architect. And depending, we have a few things to talk about, but it sounds like the library group, Friends of the Library, will pay for that out of their own funds. The library or the architect's design, they'll vet that, so that'll go through that process, which certainly have no problem with that. And then once, that'll probably take 2 to 3 months. I mean, that's even quick for an architect, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe, Brian, you have some comment on that, but that's a pretty quick turnaround because they're talking about final design. And once we get there, so that'll be sometime early next year, calendar year, then we'll talk about where we are, and then the next big step, and this is where we have to have a lot of conversation, is can we bid it in portions that we have money already set aside for, as opposed to bidding the whole thing for money we don't have? Because if we do that, then the builder is going to say, I want to build it and start in 60 days, which we're not going to be able to do that. So we want to build it for money we have ready to move forward with. If we find a contractor that says, hey, look, well, I'll work with you on this in stages, that's a conversation to be had possibly. So that remains to be seen, but we're not deciding that tonight.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we need the full scope of the cost, even if it's piecemeal to start with, we have been applying for large volume grants. And when you're going after 50, 100,000 plus, they want to see bids, or they want to see the full scope of the cost. And we've been hindered because we don't have that data. And we've got one grant in Cannon Foundation. They're interested enough, they want to come and see the facility, but they want to see more data before we've applied, and they told us you don't have a chance because you don't have that information. Once we have some of that, and maybe doing a piecemeal is going to work for them. But that data is what we really need. We do have a general contractor who said he would put together some preliminary numbers. That may be good enough for some of these grants that we're going after. But there's a need there to have that so we can look forward to bringing in some significant dollars. So thank you again for placing us on the agenda. We look forward to everybody raising your hand and saying yes. Thank you.
We, speaking for myself, and I'm sure the other board members feel the same way, we appreciate everything that this Friends of the Library have done so far. I mean, I know it's an uphill battle, and we're looking forward to having a new library. 900 square feet isn't working for a town of 10,000, not anymore. Some of us can remember when we went down there, and it worked when we were smaller, but the town's gotten a whole lot bigger now. This design looks like something that everybody can agree to, I hope. So, again, I thank all of you for doing what you're doing. Anyone else? Anyone?
I'll make a motion that we approve the overall concept with acknowledgement that changes may be needed pending further review by town staff.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Just further discussion. Anyone? Comments?
I know inevitably they're going to run into a snafu somewhere, so I'm glad you worded that in that manner.
Yeah.
Yes. We're just approving the design.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. All right, anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank y'all.
And I'd just like to say, you guys have worked really hard, all the fundraising. I know it takes a lot of time to organize all that, and the purse bingo, the gala, and all the different things that you guys have done. And I know it takes a lot of hard work, but when you work together, it works, right? So I appreciate all your determination, and we'll all be proud of it when it's done.
And I've been there along the trail with all of you. And I know it's a great thing and it's a good thing. And I'm excited as all of you are. And we're looking forward to completion of this.
Yeah, I have to say that too. We're looking forward to having our library in there.
Right.
Okay. B is continued public hearing on January 22, 2024 at 6 p.m. for conditional use request CZ 2302 to rezone parcel ID 000555745 from the existing residential single 20 R20 zoning to a conditional zoning residential single 20 CZ R20 zoning allowing the agricultural rural AGR manufactured home permitted use by right.
Mr. Mayor, Board, good evening. So, similar to the last meeting, we're asking for a motion to continue to the January 22nd meeting. This was seen at the Planning Board a couple weeks ago, and again was asked to continue as well. So it's pretty cut and dry for this one. We're just recommending a motion to continue to the January meeting so it can be seen in the Planning Board meeting this month in December.
I make a motion that we approve the continuance to the January 22nd, 2024, 6 p.m. meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. C, consider approval of resolution number 23-24, fixing date of public hearing for December 11, 2023 at 6 p.m. for annexation number 49235 submitted by Habitat for Humanity for the Sandhills for two parcels totaling approximately 103.23 acres. Both tracts are east of US 1551 Highway and south of PD Road. Parcels are currently in the Aberdeen Town extraterritorial jurisdiction, directly abutting the town's corporate limits.
Mr. Mayor, Board, this one's pretty cut and dry as well, as this is just the continued process from the last board meeting. This is where we're asking for a motion to approve the resolution of 2324 so that we can set the public hearing date for the Habitat for Humanity properties that are located between Height and PD Road off of 15501. One tract being approximately 100.3 acres and the second tract being 0.2 acres. Any questions?
I make a motion that we fix the public hearing date for December 11th, 2023 at 6 o'clock for the Habitat for Humanity rezoning of two parcels.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. This is just an annexation agreement.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Should I have listed the number? 23, 24?
2324 is the resolution.
Okay.
number, ma'am.
All right, there was a, good, it's been seconded. Discussion from the board. This is kind of cut and dry on this one. Aberdeen will be 103.23 acres larger if this passes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. We got other business. I do have, who else on the board has any other business? Anybody? Anybody? If y'all would stay just another 5 or 10 minutes, I got something I want to show you. And it pertains to a library. Let me see if, he's got this thing set up. He setting something up that'll come up on the screens here in just a second. I won't take much of your time, but I'll show this. We went through this the other night at a work session, I believe it's a work session. And they've already seen it, but there's additional information. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I picked this thing up off of eBay, and it's Tarbell Lumber Company, and it's dated September 28th, I believe, 1893, and it's a letter from the Tarbell Lumber Company, which was where Aberdeen Coca-Cola is now. And there's a street over there called Tarbell Street. Well, I've lived here all my life, and I had no idea where a name like Tarbell would come from. Where would that come from? I've never heard that name before. Well, it turns out that the Tarbell Lumber Company in Aberdeen in 1893, the treasurer was C.D. Tarbell. His name was Tarbell. So we got a street out here named Tarbell after this man that was with the Tarbell Lumber Company. But there's some more information that has come forward on this. What the letter is they're sending 3 railroad cars of lumber to Charleston to put it on a pier to ship this lumber out somewhere coming from Aberdeen. And I didn't know the lumber company was where the Coca-Cola plant is now, but it was. Anyway, this is a little bit of Aberdeen history. This is the same year Aberdeen was incorporated. It was 1893. So this is a rare letter. But doing some more research, and my son did this. I'll pass these out. I think he's going to be able to put it up on the screen so everybody can see it. I'm going to pass these down. Those two, and let me get these down here for y'all. 1, 2, 3. All right, here's how this goes. To make, everybody's, what is it, 6 degrees of separation? Everybody's 6 degrees of separation. This gets real close to almost 1-to-1 separation. C.D. Tarbell lived in Southern Pines. I didn't know that, didn't know anything about Mr. Tarbell. He was a town commissioner in Southern Pines. Didn't know that. All right. Somewhere along the line, about I can tell you when it was, the town of Southern Pines got sued because of their doing something with the water and sewer lines. And so Mr. Tarbell had to show up because he was a town commissioner. And these are public notices in the newspaper. And it goes like this: Moore County Court, Charles D. Tarbell, being duly sworn, says that he knows the contents of the foregoing petition, that the same is true of his own knowledge, except to a matter therein stated on information and belief as to those matters he believes to be true. Charles D. Tarbell. Okay, and he was sworn, and it was Charles Lockey, L-O-C-K-E-Y, no, George Lockey, was a notary when he swore this. Now, here's where this is coming in. I hope you can put this up here. This complaint was in the court in Moore County, in Carthage. All right, it goes on down where this was tried. It says, the said defendant has shown cause before Honorable Thomas A. McNeil, Judge, and then it goes on down to the Superior Court judge. Well, the Superior Court, this is dated December 24, 1900. So we're talking about 123 years ago, right? The judge was George H. Brown, Jr. Now, this is where it gets real close. Let me see if you can put that up there. All right, we'll try to get it up on the screen. Again, hopefully this won't take just another minute. The name is going to be real significant here in just a second. The judge that was in charge of this court in Carthage was Judge George H. Brown, Jr., December 24, 1900. Let's see if it shows up.
Give me 1 second here, sir.
Okay. See if it's gonna show up. Is this gonna take too long?
I can get signed in,
Okay,
but I can't spell my own last name, so that's a problem.
try again.
All right? Let's see if that works. Apparently not. No, I misspelled it bad. Does anybody know how to spell my last name?
WRIGHTON.
Do you work here?
Got an agent.
Well, I did at one point.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nothing like a little pressure. What classes? I haven't found them. I've been looking for them for a week.
All right, I was waiting for that to come up. Now, here's how this gets real close to home. That's the George H. and Laura E. Brown Public Library in Washington, North Carolina. And that's the same man that was the judge for Tarbell in Moore County Court. Now, this is getting real spooky here because in 1900, there were no roads between Washington and Moore County. There were no cars. All you had was horses. They did have a train. So he would have had to take the train from Washington to, I don't know where, to Rocky Mount, to Raleigh, to come down to get to Aberdeen, or to get to Moore County, and to get to the court in Carthage. So this guy, George H. Brown, and his wife gave this library to the city of Washington. And you can see it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, here's where it gets real close to home, 6 degrees of separation. You know who works in that library? My son Stephen Farrell works in that library. He works for the city of Washington, and he works in that building. So Judge Brown traveled from Washington to get to Carthage to try a case with Mr. Tarbell, who we've got a street over here named after Tarbell. So all this kind of fits together here. It's real, I don't know how you can make something up like this. How it all came home to roost that my son winds up working in this library named after the judge that tried a case for Mr. Tarbell and the town of Southern Pines. I don't know. I don't know.
How large is the library in Washington?
Do what?
How many square feet is that?
It's big. It's
know.
a big library. It's about the same size as Aberdeen. It may be a little bit bigger. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big library.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the George H. and Claire Brown house, part of it is inside of that building. One of the walls are still standing that they did not take down when they built this library around the house. But this was 123 years ago when Judge Brown was in Carthage. And it turns out my son winds up working in that same library.
So he was one of those circuit court judges.
He was, yeah, and to think, it's a 3-hour drive in a car. In 1900, I cannot figure out how Judge Brown got to Carthage. You couldn't have ridden a horse. It'd take you a month.
Might have, yeah. Didn't Abraham Lincoln do that?
Yeah, it had to be a train. I mean, there's no other way to got to Carthage.
Horse and buggy.
Well, horse and
Yeah.
buggy, I mean, if it's 3 hours by a car, how long would it be in a horse and buggy?
2 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they did, though.
Yeah,
Old
it'd take you
days.
a couple of days or
That's what
more to
Abraham
get here.
Lincoln did.
But when we were talking about a library, the judge that tried the case for Southern Pines, that's his library, George Brown and his wife library. So I thought that'd be interesting. A little bit of Aberdeen history. Appreciate you listening to it. All right, anything else? Everybody good? All right,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned.